Ultra and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Southern Crown Partners Incorporated know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Mick Ultra's crisp and refreshing taste in hand. It's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, it's time for Trilogy Outdoors podcast, and we are ready to talk a bunch of stuff today. A lot of things have been going on, and in the meantime, talking about that, our friends up in western North Carolina and the uphills of South Carolina, we're going to talk with our good buddy Rick Alston, who joined the senator on a trip out to Colorado. This is an annual thing for y'all, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We go every single year, sometimes multiple times a year. Turkey, mule deer, elk, Miriam turkey, obviously. We traditionally hunt on the western, what I would call the western slope of Colorado, which is we usually fly in the junction and hunt either Unit 421 or Unit 31. There you go.
Is that what it sounds like?
That's what we're looking for.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and Rick drew a tag, a muzzle tag this year, which is a pretty coveted tag. Everybody wants at least I do. I want a muzzle tag.
And that's a real short season over there? Or is
it 7 days or 10 days? I can't remember, Rick.
It's 7.
Yeah, 7
Full
days.
week.
And the reason why you want them is why you want the muzzle tag, at least in our part of the world, is because you usually can hit the rut just right.
Right.
Usually. And I mean, the later in September, the better, in my opinion. Especially some years you get a later muzzle season. Some years you get a few days earlier. But usually you get right dead in the square of the rut, and with a little longer range than you do with a bow, with a muzzle. So I think it provides a pretty good opportunity to kill a nice bull. And so Rick drew one of those tags this year. I should have drawn a tag, but I did not. I didn't draw a deer or an elk tag this year, which was sort of...
That's rare for you.
I think this is the first year. I mean, in the past, we had over-the-counter tags that you could buy for bow for out-of-staters. And so I've had a tag every single year for, 25-plus years now. Every single year I've had a tag. This is the first year I've not had a tag in my pocket. And but anyway, thankfully Rick drew a tag, so he needed a little assistance. Usually it's good to have somebody to help you in the backcountry or carry out an elk or just to watch for you or some glass for you, and he wanted some help. So,
Well, did the boss lady Heidi go?
She did not. She's going 2 weeks, Rick. You're leaving next week, right?
Yeah. Yep. Next week is first rifle. She drew her first rifle tag.
Yeah, Heidi drew a first rifle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know. How should we start this conversation?
I'll say that we have a guest that's going to join us in the next week or so that was out in Colorado the same time y'all were there. Mm-hmm. And Jackson is a writer for the magazine, Jackson Denny, and they spent 12 days out there. And they did a lot of work, a lot of preparation. Chris, his dad, told me that he started training like 7-8 months ago.
Yeah.
When they knew they were going. And a lot of it said, he listened to us talking about it, and he's listened to you every year that we talk about it. Talk about the preparation that goes into it to get ready for that part of it. Like, it's not even the hunting side of it.
Yeah.
It's just to get up there and handle that terrain. So I know. I mean, of course, Rick, you could call Steven at the last minute. He's already prepared because he's working out every single day like he's going elk hunting tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, he did. He called me, I think it's like 3 days before. It was about 3 days before, right? That I think I ended up booking my flight like 2 days before.
Yeah.
But
So,
it was the
to
last
that point.
Yeah.
English, the prep side of it, I'll tell you, I've been training for the past three months simply because I drew a leftover tag as well. And Steven's talking about the over-the-counter tags. That's going to be an interesting point next year because Colorado completely changed their non-resident allocation tag. So no longer is there over-the-counter tags for archery in Colorado. They've also reduced the non-resident allocations down from 25% to 10%. So being able to hunt Colorado every year as a non-resident going into the future is going to be a interesting challenge. I haven't gotten an understanding of how they are going to do their tag systems, whether or not it's going to follow the Montana type model in which, pretty much if you apply the first go round, you're going to get what was an over-the-counter tag, or whether or not it's truly going to be a full-on lottery like some of the other places are. So,
well, if it's not, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm thinking my strategy, and when really all this is honestly, this is strategy. Like, you got to think through the strategy of how to get a tag, and so who knows whether or not my strategy is good. But what I'm thinking, and I've grown to love hunting big mule deer as much as I have elk. Honestly, I think it's a different way of hunting. It's cool. It's interesting, and you just can't beat the scenery in November in Colorado. But anyway, I think what my strategy is going to be going forward is to save my deer points for my off years of elk, and save my elk points for my off years of deer. And so, hopefully I can get drawn on a deer, and then the next year I can get drawn on an elk, and then the next year I can get drawn on a deer. And if that's not the case, then hopefully at least every 2 years. So it's not optimal. It's not like it used to be. I mean, I used to burn up the road back and forth to Colorado, but it's changing for sure. Denver is changing. Or has changed.
So I saw a lot of outfitters are starting to, or several outfitters, and then we had the guy from Georgetown that joined us.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Involved in an outfitter.
Yeah, Jonathan.
I saw where they're really like pushing the fact that they will that you want to use them so they can handle all that side of it for you.
Well, and it's not a bad. I mean, Rick and I've talked about this. The programs, you buy into these programs, you pay people to handle tags and applications for you. I used to think that was silly. I mean, I really did. I used to think that was silly. I'm beginning to think it's not such a bad idea anymore. If you got places like Colorado that are literally, I mean, I think the legislature and the governor in Colorado would love to just shut hunting down, but I think they think they would get thrown out if they did that, thrown out of office. So I think you're getting to a point in Colorado where they're trying to restrict it as much as possible without getting thrown out of office, and that's going to hurt out-of-staters more than it's going to hurt anybody.
But doesn't that hurt their economy?
Sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Rick, we did the math on this, right? Isn't it like it's some tremendous number of out-of-state hunters every single year? Is it like 200,000 or something like that?
Yeah, it's into the millions, obviously, of dollars on just lost revenue from tag allocation costs. Because, I think our buddy Jim spends, $50 on a tag for a resident, and then for a non-resident, it's $850.
Yeah.
So the reduction is going to be in the millions, but then you have second order effects of the reduction of, there's a couple days that we spent a night in a hotel. We bought food at some of the restaurants. So you're going to have the second order effects of cutting down non-residents coming into the state, and that's just it's obviously not going to cripple their economy, but there's going to be a significant drop in revenue from some of the ancillary towns that maybe rely on hunters during the hunting season.
Well, if you're a guy like me, like I go to the Walmart before every hunting camping trip, and I spend $700 at the Walmart on everything you can imagine, right? I mean, hatchets and machetes and saws and fire starter and lighters. I got to have 5 lighters. I can't have 4 because 4 might not work, right? And eggs and power bars and just like everything you can imagine. I spend $700, and I don't bring any of it back. Right.
That's what
I mean, we're thankfully we have a storage unit out there that we keep a bunch of stuff in, but we don't. I mean, I don't bring anything back. I mean, I'm buying $700 to $1,000 worth of crap every single time I go. That's before I buy a hotel. That's before I start buying restaurant food. You know, that's before I buy a new pack frame or a new pair of binoculars or a new gun or whatever. I mean, it's a significant amount of money, and then you multiply that times 200,000 people that go every single year from out of state. It is a significant amount of money, and anyway, but they don't care, right? I mean, Denver,
no, they don't care.
Denver doesn't care.
They have cannabis now.
Yeah, Roy, yeah.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, they literally
they have income from cannabis.
I was about to say that sounds like they supplemented their income from different sources.
But even cannabis is not doing what they expected it to do, honestly, because you still have you've got such a glut of cannabis in Colorado. You had the marijuana, the medical marijuana scene come into play. And then they legalized recreational marijuana. Well, if you got legalized recreational marijuana, what's the point in medical marijuana?
Right.
Right. I mean, it's half of the cost. I mean, why you're not going to get insurance to pay for it? I mean, so what's the point? Now you've got, and then what they did stupidly, what they did was they started out giving everybody in Colorado the right to have 3 plants, personal plants, in your backyard.
Oh, wow, you can grow it yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And then it went to like 16 or something like that. And I think it's unlimited now. Like you can grow all, as long as it's on your property. I think you can grow.
It'd be awful difficult to tax.
Right. So
that type of
how are you,
what you're growing in your yard.
Right. How you going to tax that?
Wow.
And so they've shot themselves in the foot where, they were expecting $1 gazillion in tax revenue. We're going to fix roads and build schools. And now everybody's growing in their backyard. So
wow.
They've really foobarred the whole marijuana thing in Colorado. In my opinion, they have.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody had to have a counterpoint to that, but
well, Tom Davis, correct? That's who we had on talking about it.
Yeah.
Am I right, Tom Davis? And hearing the stories from the people in South Carolina that medically needed it or need it, and I know you guys have worked. Did it pass? It didn't
pass the Senate. It has not passed the House.
Has not passed the House yet, but. Once that passes, then how far down the road does the next thing and the next thing and then?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, marijuana's a train, and it's real hard to slow that train down. And so, I fully believe, and I know this is not the.
No, you're beating me to it. I was getting ready to say, here we are.
Here we are getting
ADHD.
I fully believe that medical marijuana is helpful to people that actually need it, and I'm not talking about the people that have a knee pain or something like that. In the world where we have an opioid epidemic, and we do, especially in the places like Jason just came back from in the mountains. When Jason went up to the mountains to deliver a bunch of supplies to the people up there, and great work. But those places are decimated by opioid epidemics. Everywhere is really, but especially those places. So in a time where opioids are destroying people's lives and people get on them primarily because of a pain issue, you got in a car accident and you had a back injury and your doctor prescribed you OxyContin. Well, you were supposed to have 30 pills, and then at day 31 you realized you're addicted, and here you are, a year and a half later, putting a needle in your arm. That happens every single day.
That happens to a lot of families.
Every single day to a lot of families. And to me, I cannot understand why we would not say, try marijuana first and let's see. Try marijuana in a pill form, and let's just see if that resolves the pain. If it doesn't resolve the pain, then you can go try the heroin, okay? But let's try the less addictive, less life-destroying medication before we go and put you on legal heroin first.
But don't you think, I mean, that opens up the can of worms that, you know, the medical industry, they want to sell those narcotics to people, and they want to get you, not necessarily addicted, but if you're addicted, then you are a guaranteed, you know, continuous sale.
Well, I think the Sacklers proved that they wanted people addicted to OxyContin. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, I don't think every pharmaceutical company is like that, but it certainly doesn't hurt their bottom line when you become addicted, right? And you got to say, well, that seems a little bit like a conflict of interest.
Exactly.
You know?
And man, we could go on a whole show about this because then you talk about fentanyl going in marijuana.
Yeah.
Because
look, fentanyl is the scourge of the earth. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. Because it creates an extreme addiction. And from what I'm told, it can do it with anything. In other words, you're a pot smoker that starts buying pot from a guy who's lacing it.
Yeah.
And you're selling to people that are just getting into it, and their body thinks that marijuana is what's giving it to them, when in essence, the fentanyl's in there.
Yeah, the fentanyl's bad stuff, and I don't know. I mean, fentanyl's one of those things like the world ought to go to war against, because I mean it kills so many people.
Yep,
it is such a dangerous thing, and it kills so many people. And
it's obvious. I'm a huge Jelly Roll fan. I am. I went to his concert. We're looking to try and get tickets for another concert, and I saw his testifying in front of the Senate about it, and some of the numbers that he brought up and shared were just unbelievable about fentanyl. It's just absolutely insane. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's bad stuff.
How many people die like every minute and every day from fentanyl? But, you know, we're sitting here, we're taking, I mean, I hate to say we're taking one bad thing and switching it over to something else bad, but we do have to get back. Let's go back to the elk and talk about this hunt in Colorado.
Well, before we do that, Stephen, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I think the legislature in Colorado is actively trying to eliminate hunting. Right now, they've reintroduced wolves onto the Colorado landscape.
That's just dumb. That's so stupid.
Not into the account because, you know, you got the folks out of Denver, Colorado Springs, you know, whomever else over on the eastern side that likes to have the thought of wolves on the landscape, and the farmers and the impact that those wolves have on those farmers, you know, be damned, because there's hippies out there that, you know, want to sleep in their bed at night that will probably never interact with a wolf, but love the fact to think that there's a wolf in Colorado, not realizing the impact that they have on farmers of taking their herds out. You know, it's the same mentality that the British Columbia had when they had the stopping the grizzly hunts up there. You know, just because somebody in Vancouver wanted to think that there's a grizzly out there, never is going to see one, never going to have to interact with it and realize what that can do. But on top of that, I think right now on the ballot for this year, there is a initiative that is going to outlaw, I think it's mountain lion hunting. I think it's lynx, where I'm not really sure how many lynx there are in Colorado, but you're going to have these. I don't think they've gone after bear yet, but we all know that's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you know, we've seen it. We saw the impact of where we hunt, and I think we even talked to a Colorado biologist that said there was probably 40 something cats in around the area, because we went hunting for deer one year, saw a whole bunch of them, and then the next year we couldn't find a deer in the week we were there. And they said that the cat predation was just through the roof, and that a single adult cat can take one mature deer a week.
Yeah.
That's 52 deer. Now multiply that out. how fast that a lion
Wow.
population.
And that would be
went
mountain
up.
lions, correct? That were
Yeah, and
Yep.
if you've got, I don't know, if you've got 5 in a square mile, you know, in our neck of the woods where we are, I think we've got a lot of cats in you know, in our unit where we hunt. I think we've got a lot of cats. So that may be low. In some places that may be high, but you know, 5 times 52.
that's a lot.
That's a lot of deer in a year, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of deer in a year. The deer have to be doing their thing and doing it hard in order to keep up with the amount. And of course, you know, when the deer population gets so low that the cats can't survive anymore, they move on to another place and start killing cattle or sheep or goats or whatever. If the deer population can't keep up, maybe the deer population rebounds, maybe it doesn't. But I mean, that it is foolish not to think that we have to control cats and wolves and bears.
Have you run into cats? Have y'all?
I've killed one. Yeah, I killed one. 2010 or 11, I killed one.
They're a little bit bigger than our bobcats, right?
Yeah, they're a lot bigger. They're a lot bigger than our bobcats. I can't believe I've never told this story on here.
No, technically they're cougars, correct? Or
Yeah, mountain lion, cougar, puma. There's all kinds of word for panthers. There's all kinds of word for them. I think they're all technically in North America pretty much the same species. Now, when you get into Central and South America, you got the jaguar, which is a totally different species, and then you got the leopard in Africa. You got a leopard in Asia. You got a couple different leopards in Asia. There's lots of big cats across the world, but the mountain lions are pretty thick on the western slope of Colorado right now, and they're talking about closing them. It's pretty incredible.
and then if you were to hypothetically, if you were to shoot an elk and not recover it, it wouldn't be long before they would be on it and the wolves, correct? Are they gonna attack a wounded or dead one, or are they looking for life? Okay.
No, for sure. If a mountain lion gets to it before a bear or the coyotes get to it, then yeah, it's going to eat it. Absolutely, it'll absolutely eat it. Now we've got so many bears and so many coyotes that a mountain lion might not find it fast enough. Mountain lions do tend to kill their prey and eat it, but bears and coyotes are a little more scavenger-like. All right, you want to tell this story, or you want me to do it?
I didn't mean to jump ahead.
Yeah,
But
well, I'll tell it because, to your point, and also English, your friend that you're talking about that was prepping. So I've been training for 3 months, and I'll tell you, I have found the fountain of youth, and that is putting a 45-pound plate in your rucksack and doing a Stairmaster. That is where time stands still. 20 minutes on a Stairmaster climbing that thing there were times literally I was climbing it and looked down, saw it at a certain time, and then looked down maybe what I thought a minute later, and a second was just rolling by. I have that hurts. So getting in shape is great, but holy cow, that is probably arguably the worst thing to do, but it's the best thing to do.
That's because Rick's a sissy.
What?
More than anything.
hey, so Jason, you and I probably won't be going to Colorado hunting anytime soon.
Shoot. I throw them on my back and walk down the mountain. I'm good.
All right, I'll start this conversation.
Hey,
I'll start this story.
Rick,
Rick clearly doesn't want.
Rick,
clearly
I'm here to protect you. So just remember that as we go into this.
So we begin our hunting adventure. This was 2 weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, we began our hunting adventure, and the day before I got there, our buddy Jim was guiding a younger kid. I think he was 19, 20, 21 years old, something like that. And the day before I got there, he killed a nice bull. And Rick was maybe 2 or 3 miles away from where they were, and went to them to help them pack out that bull. And he did. It was a pretty nice bull. I mean, it was like a small 6 or a big 5. Rick?
Yeah, no, it was a small 6, but I mean, Arson it was his first time ever elk hunting, and he tagged out within 2 hours of essentially
First day, 2 hours.
first light.
Wow.
First time ever. So,
Yep.
And he's a
sometimes
local.
luck's
Local?
No, he drove from
No,
South Dakota.
Yeah, and he worked on it. He was so excited. Was really happy for him, proud of him. Made obviously a great shot. The bull died, he said, about 40 yards from where he shot. So, and he was archery hunting as well. So made an awesome shot, and he was stoked, and was happy for him.
So Rick helped them pack that bull out, and then came and picked me up the next day.
No, that was on Saturday. Sunday, you came in at noon, and before that, that's when I had my first elk encounter. I had hiked into a spot by myself, knew that I only had a couple hours to hunt, sat down, and a bull came out for a second in a completely different location than where I thought he was going to be. So couldn't swing on him and shoot at him because he appeared and disappeared within a second.
Wow.
Kind of started thinking that might be my luck, and so I had to pull out, and I ran down and I picked up Steven from the airport at noon, and then I'll let you go from there, Steven.
Yeah, so Rick picks me up, and I don't think we saw, I'm trying to remember, I don't think we saw anything on the first day, right?
No, we hiked back into where I had that encounter and tried to see maybe if it might swing by, and we didn't see anything.
Gotcha. So first day, we saw nothing. The second day, I'm pretty sure, which would have been second full day of hunting, which would have been Tuesday, right? Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday.
Monday.
Was that the day you shot, or no? The next day?
No.
Did we see anything the second day?
Yeah, Monday was the first full day. The morning, we hiked in with our buddy to the spot, and that's where the wind swirled on us with those.
Oh, we had two bulls. Yeah, so we had two bulls approaching us from both sides. That's exactly right. They were bugling. They were bugling well, actually, and
they were coming, and we were in the middle.
Yeah, we were in the middle, which
So
is
y'all were between them and the cows?
No, we had two bulls between us. We had one bull on one side, one bull on the other, and we were in the middle. And I had sort of backed up when we had heard this one. Let's just say to the south. We had heard this one to the south, and I backed up to the north a little bit and started calling. Well, then one started bugling to the north of us, both of them within like 100 yards. We were in some thick willow stuff, so you couldn't see more than about 50 yards at most. And both of these bulls just started bugling at us and bugling at themselves and bugling at us and bugling at themselves. And they got pretty darn close where I would have said Rick would have had a shot if he could have seen them. Both of them, really. If he could have seen them, he would have had a shot. But it was thick in there, and you couldn't see them. And I started testing the wind, and the wind would blow straight to the north, and then the wind would turn around, and it'd blow straight to the south. And it would blow straight to the north, and then it'd swirl around, and it'd blow straight to the south. And within just a couple minutes of that, both those bulls went dead quiet, and we never heard or saw from them again. They are very sensitive to wind. It's not like whitetails are very sensitive to wind too, don't get me wrong, but elk are not as sensitive to visual stimulus or audio stimulus.
But sound.
Yeah,
but smell.
But smell, then they're gone. They're gone. You can actually approach, as long as you got the wind in your favor, you can approach
and get close to them.
An elk pretty dang close. If you got something between you, he might know you're there. He might know something's wrong, but he's not going to bolt until he smells you, usually, or until you get inside that real comfort zone, 75-yard type comfort zone. And anyway, that's what happened that day. They smelled us, and they were gone. So next day, we didn't see anything that afternoon either, right, Rick?
No.
Yeah.
No. Next morning, it rained on us. And then we went to that same spot and had that little herd encounter where we saw those bulls fighting.
That's right. That's exactly right.
couple questions for the idiots out there like myself. So, are elk during what we're going ahead and assuming that it's somewhat the rut going on?
Mm-hmm.
Do elk travel a lot of distance during that, or do they? Are you going to be able to go back in that same area and expect to see those same ones? Or
if you see them in an area, it's your best bet to go back to that area. But I'll tell you this, from like day to day, or really even from like hour to hour, when you think of an area, I mean, our mind's not quite right here because we think in terms of like maybe 100-acre farms or something like that.
right.
You got to think in terms of like 100,000-acre piece of land that an elk will move across, and fairly well. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes if you got a bull and a bunch of cows in a little gully somewhere and they're all happy and they got everything they need, they got water and they got food and they got sex and they got everything they need, they can just have themselves a big orgy in this little gully and everybody's happy. But I've also, in the middle of the rut, I've seen a bull traverse up 1,000 vertical feet and down the next mountain and up 1,000 vertical feet and down the next mountain. And you just watch him go, and you're like, holy crap, that bull just ran like 8 miles, you know? And he's going to be just as happy there today as he was 8 miles away yesterday.
Right.
And so our mind's just not quite, adapt.
So it's way different than it would be for a whitetail, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, but to answer your question, you see a group of elk in an area, your best bet's to go back to that area to find. You don't need to just strike off in another area, to another area. Best bet's to go back there and hope that they're still in that area.
All right. Next question, part of that is how. So as we go along, how close are you trying to get for your shot with muzzleloader?
Inside of 100 yards.
Okay, that's what I thought. 100 yards is max.
Yeah, I mean, you can shoot out to farther than that, but
Rick, that means Steven would shoot by what, 150?
Hey, I saw a TV show last night. I was very interested in this TV show. It was called Long Range Muzzle Loaders for Elk, is what it was called. And this guy killed an elk at 700 yards with a muzzle loader.
Wow.
Last night. Now, this is not the kind of muzzle loader you can shoot in Colorado. In Colorado, you have to have iron sights, so no scope. You can't shoot sabots, which are the bullets designed for long range stuff. You can't shoot sabots. I mean, it's like it's not quite flintlock style, but
you're shooting.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100+ year old technology. Okay, this guy was shooting a long range scope, with adjustable turrets and everything on it. Long range scope. It actually had a bolt. I don't know what the bolt was for. I mean, it had a bolt with a twisted bolt, but I saw him put the bullet down the end of the barrel, so I'm not quite sure I understand what the bolt was for. But it looked like a long range, like a Jonathan Agner, long range precision rifle is what it looked like. And they were at like 950 yards or something from this big elk, and this guy says, we got to get a little closer. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about a little closer? like I got to get where I can throw a rock at him to hit him with a muzzle loader almost. But this guy shot him from 700 yards, and it just pile drived him.
Wow.
So there's technology out there in muzzle to get you closer. But in our case, in Colorado,
100 yards.
It's 100 yards traditionally. You might get lucky and stretch it out.
Which is really only, 25 to 35 yards further than what you would be trying to get with archery?
Yeah, that's. I mean,
a comfortable. Let's say that's on the edge of comfortable.
I know everybody's shooting real high-tech bows nowadays, and they're shooting out to 70, 80 yards. I was never, when I was big into bow hunting for elk, I was never comfortable shooting an elk more than 50 yards because they are a thick-skinned, big-boned animal, and if you hit them an inch wrong here or an inch wrong there, they're not dying.
Right.
They're not dying, and so, and I've had, unfortunately,
I would think jumping the string too. Is that how you term it?
They'll jump the string, but I've had that unfortunate experience where, like the very first elk I shot with a bow, it sounded like Mike Tyson punched somebody in the face. You could just hear it, poof, when it hit him right behind the shoulder. Me and my buddy jumped up, hugs and high fives, and that was a great shot, and everything looked perfect, and it was at 40 yards, right at 40 yards. I mean, it looked perfect, and it sounded like Mike Tyson punching you in the face. And we got blood, and then the blood trickled, and then blood went to a drop, and then the blood went to a pin trick, and 4 or 5 hours later, elk was gone. But it looked perfect. Now, I had heard later in that year somebody killed that bull with a rifle in rifle season, which would have been a month later, and that the broadhead went in and made a weird turn and got lodged in the shoulder blade. So that elk survived. What looked like a perfect shot with a Matthews bow, a 70-pound Matthews bow, which you would have thought with a fixed blade, which you would have thought perfect. But these are tough.
They're
animals.
tough, and they're a lot bigger. Just like Jason said, they saw one in the mountains of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And
They're big.
They're not confused with deer.
No, yeah.
I mean, they are.
They're big critters.
And the terrain they live in. I mean, that their body has to be prepared for anything, and obviously everything's bigger on an elk.
Yes. Well, the toughness is, it doesn't always work out for us, does it, Rick?
Your story of your first elk seems to mirror mine, but I'll let you keep going on it.
So the next morning, which was Tuesday morning, we're hunting.
Wednesday
morning, we're hunting.
Yep.
Same area we had seen bulls in the day or two before. And we walk all the way down to the, let's just say the upside of where we thought the wind, where we should have been hunting for the wind. And then we start working our way back down. And on our way back down, we're sort of walking and calling, and nothing's bugling, everything's quiet, which is usually not a good sign. And we run into, I can see this tan spot like 100 yards out in front of us, sort of through the bushes and the trees, and I stopped. I said, "Stop, there's an elk right there." And I couldn't tell what it was. But Rick got down on his knees and got prepared, and I picked up my binoculars, and I looked at the tan spot, and, I could only see half. I could see the rump half of the elk, and I said, "It's an elk." And then I looked where the antlers should have been. There's a big bush, and I could see antlers sticking out the top of the bush. And I could see big antlers sticking out the top of the bush. And I said, "It's a bull. It's a bull. If you can get a shot on it, get a shot on it." And we had our buddy Jim with us, and Rick was with us. Jim had a muzzle loader because he wanted to shoot a cow, and Rick was obviously trying to shoot a bull. Well, that bull, I guess, took a step or made a turn where Rick had a shot, and Rick pulls the trigger, and the muzzle loader goes pop. The primer goes off, but
I didn't hear this.
yeah,
Oh,
primer goes off or tries to go off, but the powder doesn't ignite. Okay, and the bull's just standing there. Like, one of the cows got nervous and jumped. There was this bull, and he had a bunch of cows with him, maybe 7 or 8 cows with him. One of the cows got nervous and jumped and started walking away, and the bull was paying attention to the cow more than he was to us. And I was nervous that the bull was going to follow the cow off. He didn't care what we were. And so I yelled to Jim. I said, "Give him your gun. Give him your gun." So he's shooting a muzzle loader as well. So Rick grabs a gun that he's not familiar with, that he hasn't shot, but we're in an emergency situation, so we're going to make it work, right?
Right.
So he puts it on his shoulder and he pulls the trigger. Well, I watched the elk hunch up, and I knew he was hit. I knew immediately he was hit. It was easy to tell that he was hit. And I said, "Looks like he's hit good. Looks like no problem. Looks like he's hit good." And we're talking about the shot, thinking about it, and Rick's cussing about the gun and yada, yada, yada. So we give it a few minutes, and we ease our way over to where the shot was. And there's a pool of blood there that's it's like twice the size of a basketball. Just a pool of bright red blood. Not dark red, not liver blood, not muscle blood, not guts. Bright red blood, twice the size of a 5-gallon bucket. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think I said it out loud. I was thinking to myself, this bull's going to be laying dead 100 yards from here. And we started following that blood, and within 100 yards, instead of there being a bull, it just went from, giant globs of blood to little teeny drops of blood. And then in the next 100 yards, it went from little teeny drops of blood to little pin drops of blood. And then the next 100 yards, there was no drops of blood. It was only where he had rubbed up against a tree or tall grass. The hole had already closed up. And he wasn't dripping anymore. He was just transferring, off of hide onto grass and tree. And so you wouldn't find any blood unless he rubbed up against something, 4 feet tall.
Oh.
Yeah. And so then we just started following tracks. And fresh tracks, and I've followed a bunch of fresh tracks in my time, but I'm not like good enough to follow them for a mile, right? Especially not if you run into rock and hard dirt, and that's that's essentially what happened. He got into rock and hard dirt, and we either lost his track or confused his track with Cal's tracks, and after 3-4 hours, we just said, yeah, I don't think he's gone. I don't think he's here. He's gone.
And I mean, from the bright red blood, you and I talked about it at breakfast. The bright red blood, obviously, coming from whitetail hunting. I mean, that sounds like something around the lungs. I mean, it's lung blood.
I mean, it's either lung or heart blood. It was good blood. I mean, at the shot site, there was good blood, and anybody, I'm telling you, I've seen enough dead critters to tell you, anybody would have said that animal's dead. Close by. And I'll be danged if that hole didn't plug right up within 100 yards. It plugged right up. And it's the darndest thing. It's really not the darndest thing, because it goes back to what I was saying earlier about my first elk. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen multiple times, unfortunately.
Right.
They are tough-ass critters. I mean, they're just tough. And it wouldn't surprise me if that bull survived, honestly. He might have survived. I suspect that it was a high and back, like maybe clip the lungs, the top and back and the rear side of the lungs, maybe. But and that's the reason we were getting that bright red blood. But it just wasn't deep enough in the boilerplate to lay him down. And
I mean, I know y'all had talked about. I mean, you can't back out like we do. Like we would do. You can't back out and expect to go back the next morning. If you've already lost blood, there's not going to be much more the next day. I mean,
no,
that's a tough situation.
Yeah, in hindsight, I don't know, Rick, what you would have done in hindsight. In hindsight,
possibly loaded another one and shot again.
I haven't even thought that far. And if we were to have done it perfectly, yeah, I would have backed up just a little bit, let those elk quiet down, calm down, gotten Rick reloaded with his gun, and approached again and tried to get another shot. That probably would have been the right thing to do. But the cows were acting very nervous, and they could have barked at us, and then it'd have been done.
Right.
They would have taken off running. In hindsight, after the shot, I think what I would have done when I saw that the blood started petering out to a trickle, I would have said, let's leave and come back this afternoon or tomorrow morning. But again, it's hindsight. Like, you see that much blood and you think, all right, well, he just clotted, but he's still dead. And he wasn't. He wasn't.
Rick, I'm sorry, brother.
Hey, it happens. I mean,
I know.
Like we talked about, you haven't been hunting long enough if you haven't had a scenario like this happen. Now, do I wish that it would have happened on my 20th elk that I've ever done? Of course. But it happens. And then, I mean, to that point, yeah, I'll tell you, was I disappointed? Yes, I was disappointed more of once we made the decision and the conclusion that this animal is gone. My disappointment was more that I didn't end an animal's suffering immediately, quickly, things of that nature. God willing, hopefully there'll be other elk seasons for me. So that what really wasn't the issue of frustration. It was the fact of, hitting an animal, not being able to recover it. But, we still had opportunities. I mean, we moved past it, and, we went to a different location that we thought that was, that could have produced. It did not. We spent another night up in another location in the high country, but then we came around and went to another spot that we had known. Stephen, you want to talk about that big bull that ran in on us?
Yeah, the wind was really screwy the entire time. There was a front that was coming through and then had passed through, and the wind was real swirly the entire time we were there, honestly, and it just wasn't following the traditional pattern. The traditional pattern of wind in the mountain is when it's cool or cooling, the wind blows down the mountain or down the river, whichever you're looking at. And when it's warming, mid-morning, when it's warming, it goes the other way. So when it's warm and warming, it goes up. When it's cool and cooling, it goes down. And it was just like all over the place. Sometimes it wasn't up or down, it was sideways. And sometimes it wasn't sideways, it was opposite. And so anyway, we started again after we sort of licked our wounds after the loss. We started at this other spot, and we had seen a couple of animals in there the day before, and then this afternoon, the afternoon before we left, actually, we were sitting and calling in a sort of an opening with a bunch of cottonwoods, pretty spot. Big cottonwood trees are like big oak trees, if you're not familiar with those. And sort of grassy underneath, big cottonwood trees and willows underneath that. And we were calling and sort of just whispering to each other and calling and whispering to each other and sitting by a tree and just chilling through the afternoon, expecting to go home. And then here comes this giant bull off of the river, maybe less than 100 yards from us. And he caught our wind. And Rick and I didn't really even know he was there. I was staring right in his direction, and the first time I saw him, he was running sort of towards us, sort of at an angle. He didn't know where we were or what we were.
But he smelled you.
But he smelled us. I think he clearly smelled us, and he ran sort of at us and at an angle, and then he stopped maybe 60, 70 yards away, but through a big willow thicket. So you couldn't really, if you'd have been a cowboy like me, you might have just stood up and shot him in the back of the neck. But Rick does it by the book, and he wasn't going to shoot through all that crap.
Right.
To his credit, he wasn't going to shoot through all that crap. And so we called at him and called at him and called at him to try to calm him down, and he just stood on the other side of this willow thicket and just barked at us. He knew where we were. He knew what we were. Rick tried to put a little stalk on him, but he wasn't having any of it. He knew what we were. And that was really the end of it. So we did have another opportunity. At least we got to see him. We got to hear a bugle. We got to see him, but it was a tough week, honestly.
Yeah, but honestly, to think about it, it was a tough week. But as my dad always used to tell me, is like, compared to what is the question? Compared to when I first started elk hunting, and I just wished going out there for a week, and I wished that I saw a elk, any elk at that point. This trip we saw elk on public land every single day, and had at least 3 to 4 opportunities on a legal bull for the entire trip. And some may say that I'm trying to find the silver lining. Sure, I guess I am. But, that's kind of what I hang my hat on, is that 10 years ago, I would have paid an exorbitant amount of money to have the hunts that we have started to have on a yearly basis, because we've dialed in the elk. And hopefully at some point my turn will finally come through and I can finally capitalize on it. But my whole thing now is my wife has a tag, and honestly I'd be more ecstatic if she got an elk than if I ever got
That's
an elk.
understandable.
So that's where I'm at right now. Past is the past. Let's look on the future and try to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And that's about. I don't want to say that's the only way to be, but that is the best way to be because you gotta get your brain focused on that trip and on that. You can't keep worried about what happened on yours and go get her on one. Now her tag is for a bull or cow.
Nope, it's just for a bull tag, so it's
Okay.
first rifle bull tag. So we'll be looking at it. And the other thing that Stephen didn't mention is, and granted, again, hopefully I'm hoping for it, but where we were, we didn't hear a lot of bugling except for that one day. I think we only heard bugling on that second day, if I remember correctly, Stephen. So I'm hoping that maybe the thick of the rut was a little bit later, and that when we go out there in a few weeks, that maybe there's enough on the tail end that they can still be bugling a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they were last year. They were bugling during first rifle last year. It wasn't hot and heavy, but it was enough to sort of understand where they were. So that would, that'd be good.
So what dates are you out there?
I think it's a 5-day season. I think it's a Saturday through a Wednesday.
Is it during the full moon? I'm just wondering because I know that's coming up. I'm sorry.
Yep, I believe it is, unfortunately. So
that's like
they move a lot at night.
They do. They do.
Makes sense.
So it'll be just like somewhat like whitetail here, in a sense that they'll be doing, if they are doing a lot of if they're still in the rut, they'll be doing most of that stuff during the night. But out west they call it midday madness because it's just like what whitetail might do during the full moon. They'll move during midday. So
yep. Same with fish. That's why I was making the reference because I know our full moon's coming up, and we've got. I think personally, in the world of fishing, that we're a little bit behind. Don't you?
Yeah,
Jason. I think we're behind as far as everything.
Everything's late this year.
Maybe it'll work out for you.
How about the flounder? Do you think we're going to have a good month for flounder this month?
Oh my God! I don't even want to talk about it.
October's my favorite.
I didn't want to. I don't want to disclose some of the flounder stuff lately, but yes, it's been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. It's been really good.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, Rick, you need to get down and come chase a flounder because it's been really good.
So what we were talking about, Rick, when you first got on the line, other than you missing that elk, what we were talking about when you first got on the line was a really good kingfish bite, which we're not going to talk about location-wise. We're tied, or we're not going to give any specifics.
Yeah, we're going to be quiet on that. But
we're going to be quiet, but there is a very, very good kingfish bite, very, very close to us.
Yes.
And we might take kids and go float fishing for them. These are all like 18 to 30-pound fish.
They're upper class. They're not snakes.
Yeah, and there's a giant pile of them very, very close to us right now. So we may take some kids and go do that. The bull reds are going to be here.
Oh yeah, they're here.
They're
shortly,
here,
if not already.
They're already here.
The flounder, the big flounder, are thick. God, it's a great time of year to be fishing right now.
I'll give some location on flounder right now. Find structure in the ocean. Find structure in the ocean somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you can see it on live scope. I can see it on live scope. I mean, they are.
Tell them about the day that y'all had. I mean, y'all came to MIFC, and I mean they had flounder they could barely even fit on the table.
Yep, we actually had to throw some back because idiot in charge of running the boat forgot about the 10 fish max per boat. So fortunately, I used a live well. But
you were live culling.
Live culling, yeah. But man, it was incredible, and they would hit as soon as you got that bait coming off the structure. If it was falling off the structure, is when they would grab it, and it was just a distinct thump. I mean, it was like crazy. And you either had a fish on or you were hung in the rocks, one of the two.
Right.
And all those growings along the beach, and I'm speaking specific for here, Garden City, Myrtle's Inlet, Myrtle Beach area, but all those growings along the beach, I would almost, I know you could get out there and do it right now.
It's a good spot.
Oh, I'm sure the 3 miles loaded with big flounder. I'm sure.
All
all
right.
is
So,
loaded.
Jason, you're going to have to agree with me on this. It's amazing, but it's been like a desert.
It
like,
has not been how it's been in the past.
No, I took John O'Keefe out, 2 weeks ago? I took John O'Keefe, and typically I have a lot of luck out there at that transition point, I think, in September to October, and summer to fall, whatever you want to call it. I put the live scope down, and not only did I not see any, like, fish on the structure or anything like that, I did not see sharks. I did not see pinfish.
Mm-hmm.
I did not see lizardfish. I did not see anything, and I panned all the way around, and that thing don't lie. I mean, you can see what's out there. The only thing I did see were some Spanish that were moving around through the water, but that was it. Like, I did not. When you fish on that structure that I was on out there, you typically go see pinfish and little black sea bass and everything else. Nothing.
Huh.
I will give an overall year grade of the 3 Mile Reef a C- this year. I have not been impressed. I've done good catching Spanish there and other, fish that are just passing through.
Yeah.
But as far as the reef, I'm not impressed at all this year. Our creek this year has been 100 times better.
Now give your grade on flounder fishing so far for the year.
I would say an A- just because I don't believe that there's anything. I don't believe there's a perfect score. But if I was a grading teacher, I would give about a 94 to our flounder fishing this year has been good because we always got the numbers. People can say what they want. They can do it. We always got the numbers. You can go out there and catch the same amount of numbers now that you could a long time ago. The difference now is they're a lot bigger.
Yep.
So now you've got the big fish with the numbers. And, I mean, the old
But
days,
we killed all the females.
Yeah.
No, we've killed all the females now. How are we having such a good?
How's that possible?
Yeah. We ain't going down this rabbit hole, but we live in a society where people just refuse to talk positive. Mm-hmm. And everybody, I used to catch 100 flounder back in the 80s. Cool, I can do it right now.
Yeah.
And, everything was greater yesterday than it is today. But the reality is the regulations that they made, whether it's the 16 inches, could it be influenced by North Carolina's closure? Obviously, yes. But whatever they have done, they got it right.
But here's the other thing, and you briefly touched on this. Out of the 100 flounder you catch in a day, if you really worked hard at it, you could catch 100 flounder in a day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, out of the 100 flounder that you catch in a day, I bet you that 20 of them will be close to 20 inches or better.
Before you even finished your statement, I was already thinking what I thought, and you hit the number right on the head.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible, y'all. I mean, it used to be like a handful.
Well, you could. Me and English today. Back when even you ran charters and stuff. I mean, this was a common thing. Hey, buddy, how's your day? Oh, I went 3 for 40.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
I went 4 for 80.
And that was at 13 inches or 14?
That was in the 14-inch time frame.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, and there was a lot of good to that. Okay, well, we're not harvesting a lot of fish, and we're catching a lot of fish, and obviously anywhere you go, if you're getting smaller fish, then that's a testament that the next generation's good and the next year's crop's good. But
they never got there.
I don't know. Maybe they were just harvested as immediate as they could cross the line. They were harvested, so that kept us in that.
They never got that extra
frame.
spawn. They might have gotten one spawn. They might not have gotten any spawns. Now you're not killing a fish until it gets at least 2, sometimes 3 spawns.
2 spawns, 2 or 3.
And we're and I mean, at the end of the day, we are up against an incredible increase in the number of anglers that are out there targeting. I mean, it's easy. Go to Grand Strand Fishing Reports and just look at the posts and questions on there. And also the habitat's changing. I mean,
yeah. Well, look, I'll tell you that there's 3. I don't want to call their names, but there's 3 brothers that we know from the area that are great flounder fishermen. Okay?
Absolutely great. Yep.
Yeah, they're great flounder fishermen, and they relentlessly beat up on me about these flounder changes and debated. And we're going to be killing all the females and yada, 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 and this is going to massively fail. And, you know, I had to have a leap of faith in order for this to work. I debated it with a scientist, and we talked about it, and I had to see data, and I had to be convinced here. But at the end of the day, I was convinced enough to vote for it. These guys beat the tar out of me for this, okay? And the last time I talked to one of them, I asked him what he was doing that day. It was a couple weeks ago. He said, we flounder fishing in Polly's. I said, oh, how'd you do? 55 keepers. 55 keepers.
Yep.
Okay.
I really want to know what you said.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can't say it, but I would love to know off air.
Well, first off, you can't win an argument with them anyway.
No. Well,
you can't.
They know though, right? like when you're catching 55 fish over 16 inches, there's no denying you got something good going on. You got something good going on.
Yeah, that was a good regulation change, and I mean.
It was a great.
But you think about that number, that boat cap. I keep going back to that boat cap.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? 15 per person with a 60 boat cap at one point or something. I don't even remember if they had a boat cap.
20 per person with it. Yeah, and then we went to 40.
Yeah.
You know, and it. Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, do you need more than 10 flounder? Maybe if you're cooking for a church, but if you're cooking for a church, then go put 3 or 4 boats to work.
Exactly.
To work. I mean, you don't need 60. I don't think you need 60 dolphin either, honestly. No. But dolphin are quickest growing fish in the ocean. So.
I'll tell everybody, I tell all my charters, and some of them, 99% of them I think understand and they're happy. I said, take what you want to put in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Don't take what you want to put in the freezer. Because if it goes in the freezer, 99% of the time you ain't going to eat it.
It's going to get thrown away.
I'm the same way. I hate eating. I mean, I will, especially if it's something that's a really good quality fish that we did a really good job of taking care of and cleaning. We bled him. You know, you got nice, pretty white meat still. It's not ugly and pitted.
Yeah.
I'll eat a fish out the freezer, but I do not like eating fish out the freezer. No. I like eating a fresh fish, and I'll eat it every single day till it's gone. The fresh fish in the fridge is gone. And then I don't, like the chances of me eating it out of the freezer after that are about like half of the chances of me eating it fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got in a full-blown argument with a guy, not a charter client, but we were having this discussion, and, we do get a little negative feedback sometimes. Oh, you charter guys, y'all are harming the population more than anything. And I was trying to explain to him, I said, man, we throw back more than we catch. Or more than we keep. Yeah. And I said, we don't allow the overharvest. I said, the self, keeping yourself accountable, and he looked at me, and this is verbatim what he said. He goes, you live here. I get down here 3 times a year. When I come down here, my goal is to take enough fish home for the whole year.
Yeah, yep. I hear that all the time.
And I immediately looked at him, and I said, would it kill you to make 2 or 3 trips a year? And I said, would you really just hate that? And he goes, well, that costs money and stuff. And I said, look, man, just go fishing more.
Yeah, I mean that is the only argument the upstate guys, the upstate legislators, House members and senators have when we start talking about management of a species is, well, my guys come down once a year and they want to load the freezer and they want to catch 4,000 flounder and take it back to Greenville with them. Like, okay, but we make laws not for the Greenville guys.
No.
Not for the upstate guy, not for the guy from Pennsylvania that comes down here. We don't make laws for individuals. We make laws for the populace.
How about when I go to Lake Jocassee? I want to bring home 9 rainbow and brown trout.
Right.
But I can't because there's a limit.
We make laws for everybody. That means if I make a law for a guy that can take 100 flounder back with him to Greenville, it's got to happen for me and you and Jason too.
Yeah.
And that can't work.
And this is where I think y'all did such a great job on the flounder thing because I know you were getting questioned. Mm-hmm. They were calling you between Stephen, between Lee Hewitt, between Scott Whitaker, who is not a senator, but obviously wants the best for the fisheries. I mean, I think y'all did the research on it. I think you looked at everything before y'all voted for that. And there was a sunrise clause in that, right? Or sunset clause.
Yeah, we eliminated it this year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was up. I think it would have been up this upcoming year. I got to look back at that, but we eliminated the sunset.
So in other words, it'll stay enacted.
It'll stay enacted until we make an affirmative change to it.
Right.
Which, I mean, maybe we do. Maybe 5 years from now flounder are jumping in the boat, and they're like jumping out like Winyah Bay. You see these big sturgeon jumping out of the water and killing people.
No, they're tarpon.
They're not tarpon, they're sturgeon.
Tarpon jumping.
That's sturgeon.
Oh, I had a guy tell me he saw 30 tarpon jumping from his way from the ball field to the jetties, and I said, dude, how good are you looking at them?
Yeah, do they have big ridges on their back?
I mean, are you looking at them close? Because they're not tarpon, I promise you.
Yeah, but, maybe we've got flounder jumping out like sturgeon and killing people. And if that's the case, we'll go up. We'll go up to 15.
So a rarity that I don't film most of the time when I'm fishing, but that day, the day I took Shep and Tony, I was really just trying to make sure Shep was taken care of and catching fish. Most of those fish, when you would set the hook, were coming out of the water, like with a flounder.
Jumping, yeah.
They were jumping and coming out the water.
I will tell you this, and I spent, obviously I spent 90% of I'd say 80% of my charters in the creek. The new thing I've seen, and we're tinkering with it right now, we've caught a couple, but I think the flounder population is getting so thick now that the smaller flounder, we're starting to actually watch them run up on sandbars and start to feed on top
water.
Yeah.
And I've seen this before, but I've also been on the water, for pretty much my whole life. I have seen more of these flounder like chasing bait up on a bank. It's like they're pretending they're redfish.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because, there's a good population of them or the competition for food, they're just spreading out, but pretty cool to see stuff like that.
That is cool.
Just a quick example, we started that Monday night flounder tournament that unfortunately the weather, you can't do a nighttime once a week tournament in Merle's Inlet and expect every week to have it because the weather,
Afternoon
when you leave at 5 o'clock, you're getting a storm.
Yeah.
But the couple times that we did have it, we had, the most we had was 11 people. That's not a lot. But we had 1 week where we had a 2.5, a 3.4, and a 4.2 flounder caught in 2 hours.
Yeah.
That right there says enough. When you think about how excited we used to get about catching a 3-pounder, and you're sitting there in 2 hours. George had 3 fish over 2 pounds.
Yeah, that's when you start getting into that. That's when you make a little aggregate tournament and really start to.
And that's the best. That's the best test anyway of a good fisherman.
Oh yeah, anybody get lucky to catch one.
No doubt.
So I'm wondering if we're gonna. I'm wondering if we're going to be able to test the state record again here shortly. Coming back out of Merle's Inlet.
That's a hard one.
So far from reality.
18 pounds.
Mr. John, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's 18 pounds.
Yeah, I saw a 10.5 pounder this year, and
it's a massive fish.
Dude, it doesn't even look normal. It's.
My dad's got a 11.5 pound flounder on the wall that we killed spearfishing 25 years ago or something like that, and it is a massive.
Is that the one you were holding in that picture?
No, that's
as a kid.
Yeah,
no, there's a picture of you.
Yeah, that's a different one. That's a big fish too.
That's a big one.
But no, but a 10+ pound flounder, y'all. They just get so freaking big. Imagine an 18-pound flounder.
Probably as big as that table.
Yeah, it's a halibut.
Well, hey Rick, you wanna hang on the call with us to talk about? We're gonna Jason. I don't know if you heard us, Rick, but Jason, is he still there?
Rick, you there?
I am.
Okay. Jason just returned early yesterday morning from North Carolina, delivering relief funds, relief stuff up to several drop-offs up there, and we're gonna talk to Jason a little bit about what's going on up there with somebody instead of listening to the media, which, like Jason said, they keep showing videos of all these rivers with water in them and the floods that happened the day of it. In essence, right now, all these rivers are completely empty. There's no water in them.
There's no water.
And we're going to talk about the needs up there. Jason and Rick, you're more than welcome to stay on and chime in if you want to at all. But we're going to switch over to that. Love to have you stay on if you want to.
Yeah, of course, because, in my job, unfortunately, we have a job of restoration as well. Obviously, North Carolina just got pummeled, but the North Augusta, Aiken area for the company that both my wife and I work on, she's been going over there to Aiken. She was there Sunday, and she's been there every single day since, trying to help our guys and make sure that we are doing everything that we can from a company perspective to get the restoration of Western South Carolina, for lack of a better word, on as well.
So Rick
And,
works for a power company. We're not going to mention the one, but Rick is directly responsible for the outages. So after this podcast, we're going to give you his cell phone number. Yeah, so just stand by for Rick's cell phone number, and you can call him.
Well, I'll tell you, the area you just mentioned, I do have a friend who owns a house in Augusta, and actually it sits right above, just outside the fence of Augusta National. He took a tree, one tree on the roof and another one or two in the yard, but said that Augusta got it pretty good.
Yeah.
And that the Augusta National got it really good. The oaks going in were really bad, and then everything else. So, while I know a lot of people keep concentrating on North Carolina, which is it's a beast like no other, because it's not like when we have a hurricane here, and houses are wiped out and people need stuff. You can get a boat, you can do whatever to get to them. You're talking situations up there that, you're dealing with extreme dangerous situations just to get to these people. Now, even after all the storm.
Yeah, what's happened in the Augusta, Aiken, North Augusta area, and all the way up through the upstate of South Carolina, it's bad. People are still without power. All the utility companies are absolutely working 24/7. The linemen and linewomen that are out there that are running shifts, 12-hour shifts, and literally doing their job, trying to get folks power, then coming back, getting food in them, sleeping for literally the minimum amount of time just to get up and go back on shifts to try to get folks their power back is extraordinary. And yes, it's hard for a lot of people, and I know there's extenuating circumstances that folks have even more so. But when you go back to the compared to what is the question, folks are without power here in South Carolina and the upstate, but up in North Carolina, you have whole towns that have been wiped off the face of the map.
Yep.
So, you always got to look at compared to what is the question. And yeah, North Carolina, that Western North Carolina area just got absolutely smoked.
So real quick, so Jason and Captain Crystal, who I wish could have joined us. I know she's busy today. Actually, they are
very busy.
They are getting ready to send another truckload up.
We were sending another truck at 5 o'clock in the
tomorrow.
morning.
But they started doing a deal and getting donations over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Started early and loaded up, and they loaded up the truck, and Jason actually went and got a U-Haul, which, by the way, let's give a shout out to U-Haul.
Yeah.
U-Haul is, what they've done is they're not charging the daily fee. Is that correct?
Yeah. They
waived the daily fee. They're only charging mileage for anybody that's going up there.
And the other thing they were doing for us, which it worked out for us, is that's not size oriented. So as she told me, she said, you can have a 15-footer, you can have an 18-footer. I said, what's the biggest one you got? She said, we got 130. I said, we'll take it.
Yeah.
This
thing was a monster.
We needed it.
They needed it. They filled it up, but they took off on Tuesday.
Tuesday,
we left
very
here at
early. 5 a.m.
And real quick, just talk about your trip and where you went.
It was nuts. It's such an emotional roller coaster because there was just a level of unknown. We were told that, to be careful. And I think that's what, detoured people initially, as they were saying, oh, you can't get down this road. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it's like, all right, we're going to go and figure it out. And about 3/4 of the trip there, we're seeing trees down, we're seeing signs down, and the immediate, is it really that bad? Like, is this being fabricated? We don't know, And then as you get closer and closer, you can kind of see the level of destruction kind of picks up. But there's still a sense of normalcy. We got to Asheville, which was the first hard-hit area, and we went into town, and, everybody seemed normal. There's obviously no power up there. You got no cell phone signals, no gas. But there was cars on the road. There was people. I guess what they did is the stuff in the stores that they couldn't, I guess it was just a little too hot. So they had moved some stuff outside. So, that was the first thing we saw. And then once we actually really, And don't get me wrong, Asheville's got, some destruction on the outside, but we didn't feel like it was bad. And then once we went north of Asheville, it did not take us long to figure out that this was a whole different ball game. So it's a little crazy. We did a couple drops. Our first drop, we dropped off some animal feed to a farm. Crystal had made contact with somebody who had a bunch of animals. They were out of feed, and they had just reached out on Facebook and said, hey, anybody coming this way? We got no power, no water, very limited access to our farm. So we dropped off a bunch of feed, and that was a feel-good story. They were fine. House is fine, running on a generator, didn't seem threatened. They just simply ran out of feed, and the local feed store, I guess, was destroyed by the river, so they didn't have the ability to go buy it. So that's a feel-good story. And then
the animals are important, and there were a lot of people. That's one of the big things I've seen a lot of people loading up was, horse feed.
Yeah.
Hay, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we went to Tractor Supply. We wiped them out of everything they could find. So, but that was one thing, and then we made our way to the main fire department there in Burnsville, and still just didn't feel like you saw a bunch of people standing around, and we pulled up, got out the truck, and it was just like from that moment on, somebody had just put the gas pedal to the floor. We're standing there, ambulances are coming in, helicopters are coming in, and we're talking to a few people, and I said, well, where's all your help? And he said, there is no help. I said, oh, okay, well, what can we do to help? And, these people don't know us. We don't know them. Half of them, we didn't even figure out their name, and we were thrown in a situation where there was literally helicopters coming in, unloading people. Most of the people were okay.
Yeah.
The people that wasn't okay, they got in an ambulance, they left. We're unloading supplies. As we're unloading supplies, there's trucks coming in, grabbing it. But there was a sense of frantic urgency that immediately made you uncomfortable. But then, the human spirit takes over, and it's like, okay, well, we got 6 people. We're all capable of doing something. Give us something to do, so. But that was wild. We watched people after people come in, and then we started meeting people and talking to people. And we had not crossed that point. The reason that was a safe place is that was the last place that it was normal.
Right.
So
nobody had gone further.
Correct. That was their safe port. So then they were saying, well, this place needs supplies. It's sketchy getting there. One of the bridges is out. They have built these people had built a temporary bridge in 12 hours. They had literally gotten bulldozers, pushed dirt over, laid metal plates across it, and it was sketchy, but it connected the two sides. Once we got on the other side of there, then we could see. We saw, whole towns are gone. You look at stuff, and it's you can't even imagine, because I look over there, and it looks like a normal river. There's a little tiny river.
And it would be an open area out there.
Water's flowing.
Just like normal.
And honestly, it's a terrible description. It looked like they were building 2 interstates on both sides of the river. It was completely level, very gradient, dirt. You saw some stuff, no sticks, no nothing. And we pulled up to the volunteer, and I said, did the river cut that section of woods out? And the lady said, there was 40 houses right there. They're all gone, and you can't even. I'm like, where's the debris? And I've been through hurricanes my whole life. And I'm like, okay, where's the debris? And they said, oh, it's all at the bottom of the mountain. Well, where's that at? Oh, about 3-4 miles down there. So it picked up houses and just took them 3 or 4 miles and basically just dumped them in the bottom of the ravine. And I'm like, it's wild. But we still, from that point on, we were unloading stuff in trucks. We were helping people. You could tell that there was people upset, but you wasn't seeing anything. And then the one lady's like, well, if y'all got supplies, go to the town central. That's the highest point there in Burnsville, not affected by floods. The river goes left. That town goes right. And we pulled up there, and that's when, it really hit home, because there's people everywhere, and they're just standing there. And they're just looking around, and you could just tell,
this is day 5.
Yeah, what are these people doing? You don't see, there was no, people running up to us with, injuries or anything, but there's all these people just standing there, and we're like, okay, so we casually pull up, go talk to the lady, and we're like, hey, we got some supplies, can we, what do we want to do? And she goes, well, there's a stage set up over there where they had some type of musical event or something, prior to the storm. And we start unloading stuff, not really paying attention, and it went from 10 people standing around to 100 and 150 people coming out, and these people are like pulling up. The one dude's on a side-by-side. He like takes off, runs up a mountain, like grabs his family, comes down. Like these people, for lack of a better word, I mean, they had basically just given up. They were just hanging out, keeping each other company. Most of them hadn't eaten, drinking, and they had found that sense of community in that town center because it was
And they were
safe.
pulling stuff together is what you were saying. Like,
Yeah, we talked to the one guy, and he was explaining it. They had pulled canned goods from their own house. And this is where, like, the selflessness started. It started just baffling me. Your family's got no food. They got no water. They got no ability to leave. And yet there was families there that were digging in their pantry and bringing stuff, knowing that there was a limited supply, bringing it to the town central to make sure whoever needed it the worst got it. So I was like, wow. I mean, you think about it. I mean, look what's going on with the ports right now. Ports are on strike. What do? They wipe out every piece of toilet paper in this town. So these people did the opposite. They were like, hey, let's put all our stuff together, and we'll just, go from there. And that was, like, hard to comprehend. Well, at this point, we've got, probably, lack of a better word, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of supplies. So we start laying all this stuff out, and these people are coming up and, like, crying. They're, like, telling their stories. Everybody's got a story. And it's wild. Like, you just sit there, and you're just so, like, blown away. And it's like, all right, well, let me go grab something else. Like, a lady came up to me, and that one got me because I got kids at home. She came up to me and said, I guess they had lost, their house, but they had kind of got out or whatever, and they had nothing. Well, their two kids hadn't had a diaper in like 3 days. And obviously, on the rim of things, food, shelter, and water is way more important than, you could survive without diapers.
yeah.
Like, we gave her a thing of diapers, and, like, her kid was like, oh, he don't know any better. That little girl didn't know any better. They were like, oh, Mickey Mouse, for like a brief little moment, those kids were like happy, like you just gave them a new toy. And then like a guy comes up on a 4-wheeler and he goes, hey man, he goes, I don't want to take anything from anybody. He goes, any chance you got dog food? And I'm like, yeah, I got dog food. He's like, oh, thank God. He said, my dogs haven't ate food in 3 days. And he goes, we're limited on food, so we're giving them like our food, but we don't want to, stuff like that. But it's just basic stuff. I mean, I could go on and on about stories. And the lady was telling us, their family was fully prepared, but the power issue backfired. I guess they had a freezer full. They had deer meat. They had this. They had that. Well, it was all spoiled, so they couldn't eat it, And they had canned foods, but like a lot of the canned foods, they blew through that in the first 5 days. So then you find yourself with all the stuff in your refrigerator that needs to stay cold is not edible. And so, like, even the one guy told us, he goes, you can only eat so many bags of potato chips and crackers and stuff before you clean out your cupboard. And then all of a sudden, you're left with nothing. So
What's been amazing is just to see the list because I'm in a group with several drivers that are on the way up there right now with more stuff from different groups. And to see that list of needs changing from
it's constantly changing
what it was to the EpiPens to the Benadryl, and who would have thought that these guys are getting overrun with poison ivy on these recovery trips? That I didn't realize poison ivy was so bad up there.
I didn't either.
But they're getting destroyed by poison ivy, so they're in dire need of Benadryl.
Yeah, I mean the simplicity it's very eye opening, and we take everything for granted here, but it's amazing the basic needs that you need and then the complications that come back. I mean, this is like colonial time style issues. These guys up there, the guys, girls, family, they're tough as they could be. They could care less they got power. They could care less. All they care about is they want food, water, and shelter. But then there comes like, the humanity side of it. The one guy we talked to, the point of contact, said to bring a lot of flashlights. Their kids were scared because there's no light. So every time the sun goes down, they're in pitch dark.
Yep.
And so, like, the kids were kind of like, dude, you can give my kid a flashlight, and he could sit there and play with it and create, light like he was sleeping. Before this, he was basically like, wouldn't sleep because he had no light, And dumb stuff. I mean, when we were up there, was a new moon. So, I mean, there wasn't even any moonlight that night. And they were explaining, like, oh, we had moonlight, but it went away. I mean, that's colonial time stuff. You're depending on the moon to provide you light at night. And we heard, everybody's got a story. But it was cool because all those people, all they cared about was each other. They were so grateful that people brought them stuff. And that's why, the video I shot, I said, well, I can't do a whole lot of things. I said, but I can unload this truck, make sure y'all get supplies, and I'll get the word out, where we're from. Because there's a lot of ties, like I told you this morning.
Yep.
There's so many ties from here to the mountain.
I mean, that's where I spent 2 to 3 weeks of summer every year in just above Black Mountain.
Yeah. So many people at the beach have a house there, that family there. So many people vacation from there to there. There's quite a tie from the beach to the mountain.
And we were talking about it. The three of us were talking about it before. Most people move there for a reason. Mm-hmm. Most people that live there live the way they do for a reason. And I mean, it's a little different. Like they are I mean, I hear people calling them hillbillies and everything else. And so what? I mean, I guess rednecks and hillbillies are similar. But they're gonna survive. They're gonna figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, they move there because they are simple people. They're tough, and they want to be self-sufficient. That's what we've learned. We made a lot of friends with rescuers, a lot of friends with volunteers. I've been texting one of the helicopter guys all day.
The helicopter guys, all the private entities that got involved like immediately after it, those private helicopter guys. I mean, I'm not a huge racing fan, obviously, but I do know who Biffle is.
Greg Biffle's got a helicopter.
Greg Biffle and all that he did in bringing attention to it and getting all those other helicopter owners up there. They were, I mean, I don't want to say they're the true unsung heroes, but man, if you watch some of their videos from their rescues that they made, like they were putting helicopters in situations that most, I mean, private helicopter pilots will never be trained for. I mean, landing on slopes, and I mean, I watched Cletus McFarland. I watched his videos last night of his time up there, and he had several times where he landed, and you can hear the computer in his helicopter telling him you cannot, basically saying, I think it was saying grade, 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 and then it was saying power line, power line, power line, and he lands the dang helicopter right there because he had a lady and a child who was in bad health and needed to get out of there. And he landed it there. And then in everybody's videos, they're talking about where's the government at. And I'll say that it does look like as of yesterday or day before that a lot of people showed up and National Guardsmen, which Stephen can explain that better. But is National Guardsmen are called on by the state, correct? I mean, that would have to be a state call, or is that a federal call?
No, well, National Guard can be called by state or federal.
Okay.
Title 10 is federal, Title 32 is the state. And traditionally, in a state operation inside the United States, they're ordered by their respective governors at the request of another governor. So in a situation like this, the North Carolina governor would request the South Carolina governor to send National Guard, our National Guard, or the North Carolina governor would order their National Guard to come.
Right.
And so, yeah, they're going to be on state active duty orders, essentially.
I want to say that Connecticut Air National Guard was one of the first ones military there.
Well, I'll say this.
With their Chinooks.
I'll say this, and it's nothing political or whatever. They didn't show up until people brought attention to it.
Yeah.
They did not care. I don't know that they didn't care. I don't know the logistics of it, but I know that those people were there for 4 and 5 days with no help. And then when people started posting all this stuff on social media, then all of a sudden they want to show up and act like they're the heroes. Well, all I got to say is, why did it take a week for you to get there? Even if they're there. And if they're there in low numbers, I mean, I understand. We talked to a guy yesterday, and I'm just rambling. But
no, you're not.
We talked to a guy yesterday, and he had a valid point. So for everybody out there, I'm going to go both sides. I'm going to go government, non-government. The guy told me, he said, we don't need them. And I said, okay, this is a fireman and a police chief standing side by side. We're shooting videos with them, just trying to get the message out. He said, we don't need them. And I said, what do you don't need? He goes, we need resources. He said, you send me a bunch of National Guard guys. He goes, don't get me wrong. These guys are trained and all that. He said, they're going to set up a command post, and they're going to try to figure it out. He goes, at 9 o'clock every morning, we have 25 to 30 volunteers that show up. We give them hiking boots, backpacks, four-wheelers, and they take off in the mountains. These people know where they're going. They know the terrain. They know this. He said, if you sent me the National Guard, it would take us 3 days to teach them how not to be the ones that
acclimate
need
them to
rescued. So the one guy I talked to, he didn't care. He said, but the resources, he said, we are running out of simple things. Their chainsaw blades are breaking. They're cutting people out of houses. They're having to cut paths up the mountain by cutting trees. Well, their chainsaw blades are breaking. We brought them an absolute ton of this 50-50 mixed oil. They were running low on oil. So the supplies that they need, they got the people and knowledge to go get these people. They just simply didn't have the resources. I mean, they were talking about bearings were blowing out on their four-wheelers. They have popped four-wheeler tires. They were like, we can do the work. We just, we're such limited resources up here. So that's when we started getting the word out, that they need food, they need water. They got pets, they need dog food. The kids need diapers, they need all this. But they were telling us, simple things. Like, if you could bring a baby thing of propane up there, he's like, every one of us got grills, but we got no gas. So, we got the ability to cook food. And it's weird, too, because it's kind of split up. The one guy was telling us, he said it's a complex problem. He said because in the subdivisions, they have resources, but they have, no water.
right.
The people on the mountain have spring water. They have water, but they have no food. So every kind of problem, because they said, it's the hunting mentality. He said a lot of these guys on the mountain, they got 2 freezers full of everything they harvest. They grow their own vegetables in their backyard. They don't go to the store. Well, they just lost their supply, and now what do? They're not stocked up on Lance crackers in their cupboard like the guys down in the subdivisions. They may have enough snacks to last 2 weeks just simply off of canned goods. But it's wild up there. I mean, there's a lot going on, but my thing is we went to 3 towns. All 3 towns were the same way. And it's magnified. I mean, I don't even know how many towns there is, but if they're having that same problem across the whole thing, I mean,
it's a mess.
So, and you're seeing all this about, and was it you saying that earlier today you heard that they were turning people around? Somebody commented on your page. So, one thing and I've been paying close attention to it, but one thing is, like Asheville, they have a lot of stuff right now. And what they're doing is they're not turning you around. They're not saying we don't need it. They're saying take it somewhere that needs it.
Yeah, we live in
and I think it's getting.
We live in a negative society, and people want to sit there in their air condition in their house, and they want to get on the computer and they want to post stuff. And I can tell you right now, I've been there. I've seen it with my own eyes. 90% of that crap on the internet is not true. I doubt very highly I'm pulling up a truck full of goods to starving people, and somebody's going to run out there and turn us around. They're going to have a lot bigger problems than that. So yeah. I'll tell you that much. Now, playing devil's advocate on the other side, somewhere like Asheville, we went there, big community, big thing. All their damage is on 2 sides. They have 2 rivers on each side. They have damage going down the river. The heart of the city doesn't look like anything's wrong. If you're bringing supplies to there, I could 100% see why they would be like, hey, stop. Take them somewhere else. And then, of course, keyboard bandits get on there and say, oh, they're turning us around. Do you really think that they're going to take those goods and throw them in the trash and let their neighbors an hour away starve to death? I have a very hard time believing all this negative crap on the internet.
Or that FEMA's taking it. Now, have y'all heard this? Or TEMA, I guess Tennessee Emergency Management, and over there, the rumors were they were telling people that you cannot accept stuff from donations. You cannot donate cash to anyone other than TEMA, which I guess is Tennessee Emergency Management. I'm just going again. Yeah. This is all social media, and I've not been watching the news because I'd rather watch actual reports on social media. You can go to YouTube and watch.
There is no news.
Nonstop.
Is anybody even covering this?
Very little.
That's really the issue. Honestly, I believe is that you got a situation here where you really do have humanity breaking, like at its breaking point, just a few hundred miles from here, and the media is really not covering it.
No.
I mean, they're really not covering it. They haven't been talking about it at all. I listen to 3 news podcasts every single morning. I listen to ABC, Fox, and Wall Street Journal every single morning. That's, let's say an hour and a half worth of news. Every single morning I listen to it, usually starting around 6 a.m. For the last 4 days, I've been sort of going through it in my head. For the last 4 days, there was maybe 10 minutes of coverage out of the 4.5 to 5 hours worth of media. Maybe 10 minutes worth of coverage on it. And it is like Mad Max in the mountains right now.
Yep, It is.
I mean, it is Mad Max style in the mountains right now.
Yeah, I mean, you want some heart-wrenching numbers. I'll tell you exactly what the chief of police told me.
And that little town right there.
That little town of Burnsville, their population is 2,700 people. They're missing 600 of them.
Yeah,
So you're missing 30% of your town.
Right.
And why is that not important?
And how do you think it's going to be 2 weeks from now? And they're not going to have power 2 weeks from now.
No.
They might not have power 2 months from now. How do you think it's going to be 2 weeks from now? It is going to be hell up there. I mean, I assume the people that are there are going to have to figure out a way to leave, ultimately. But, I mean, it's going to be, you want to talk about rioters and looters and.
The looting has already started.
It's going to be out of control.
I will tell you this, and
they were warned.
We were warned. We were warned what was coming. We were 100% prepared, very much over-prepared. And I could tell you right now, the good thing about those people up there, I'd almost feel bad for the looters.
Yeah.
If those people loot, let me tell you, there's no law up there. I mean,
that would be like trying to.
Well,
I mean,
that would be like going to his house and trying to.
Exactly. It's going to be the same thing as if you break in my house. I got 2 small kids. You break in my house, there's no question what's going to happen.
But the question is, do those people you're talking about become the looters?
Yes.
Right?
Like, you're right. You're right.
In 4
At what point?
Yeah, like in 4 weeks without my family having food, water, electricity, I become the looter. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are.
You're right.
Well, that's what we were warned.
You feed your family, you survive, and in 4 weeks without power, water, or food, I become the looter, and that's a problem for people.
You're completely correct.
That's a problem.
That's what we were warned about. We were warned of one isolated story that there was a family, a guy hiked down from the mountain, and basically they were cutting trees down, knocking them in the road, and when you stopped to try to clear the tree, they basically robbed you, stole all your stuff, and then he was hiking it back up to the people because they hadn't seen anybody in a week.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. But, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean,
when good people start to become the looters, you got a real problem.
And that could happen. Now, the good thing is now that the word's out there, if all these supplies get to the people, hopefully you stop that. But anybody going up there trying to, good God. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, these guys up here, there's helicopters landing to bring them supplies. And I talked to the helicopter guy. I've become friends with this guy. He said people are pulling guns on him.
Yeah.
I'm like, who are you? Why are you here? This is our land, and they're having to have conversations. Like, hey, man, I just stopped by to do a wellness check on you.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like, we're fine. Leave. We don't trust you. We don't want you here. We don't know if you're good people, bad people. You obviously don't have a U.S. military uniform on or police. You're just a random guy landing a helicopter in my yard with my kids here.
Yeah.
They don't know. They're all looking out for each other and themselves, which is very, very positive, I'll tell you that.
Well, I'll bet you if you head down to the border of Texas, New Mexico, and such, and walk along the border down there, you see plenty of resources being used.
They're going somewhere.
Because it goes without saying that there are. It's going to get bad. Stephen's correct. I truly do believe it's going to get bad, and I believe it's going to be a point. I know we all have plans of continuing this for weeks at least, with our supply chains trying to send up there. I think it's going to become a point where we're going to have to drop off at certain points, just like the way it started. You're not going to be able to get. You're not going to want to risk going further.
Well, my fear in all this is everybody wants to help. You take the greatest people on earth, they're going to run 3 or 4 or 5. Let's say 5, 6 loads. Well, once they get to about that 10th load and people stop donating and all that, and they just stop those problems up there. I mean, I don't know why, they should be supplied, with that much stuff. But, I mean, at some point, somebody's got to, hopefully they start to, colonialized. I guess I don't know if that's the correct word, but
Martial law's coming.
I mean, you have to set up a
mean,
store. You're going to have to get some kind of food distribution. You're going to have to start over.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Is that a thing?
Martial law?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
So if they had, if Governor Roy, never mind, I won't. If the governor of North Carolina, he would enact martial law in that area or for up there.
Yeah, he could. He could. The only people that would enforce it, if the governor enacts martial law, I'm pretty sure at
National
least
Guard.
the way it would have to be National Guard. I don't think he can compel, and I don't think the sheriff's offices would have the resources to do it either. But yeah, I mean, it would be National Guard enforcing.
We were Kim and I were talking about if you know. You're seeing now that the interstates, I mean, you know, they're guesstimating September and then March of the following year for the two interstates to open.
They have signs on the side of the road. We went to where I-40 ends. We went to the edge.
And
there's a sign up. It says I-40 will be back up and running in October of 2025.
right.
There's a sign on the side of the road.
That's pretty quick for an interstate.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that much devastation, honestly, for you to rebuild I-40 in a year, that's a pretty monumental. That's a monumental task.
Yeah, they were saying, I can't remember the amount of miles that they were saying were down on 40 at one point in time, but they have gotten a lot of it open back up. But that run from Asheville to, I mean, it's an important run.
Very
Asheville to Gatlinburg or Knoxville, whatever.
Isn't 95 closed too up there, or is it 20?
Some of 26.
26. Yeah.
The intersection of 26 and 40 is where it starts.
Yeah. I know there was a piece that you had to go, a big piece of interstate you had to go around on that side too.
And but there are so many incredibly good stories coming out of it, but you know those are getting overshadowed by the bad stories, unfortunately. But the one thing is, people need to continue to donate into the right groups. I think. I mean, it's great seeing. We get to see where the stuff we're dealing with is going.
That was the main thing in my video the other day. I mean, I got friends of mine that drop stuff off, and I mean, it looks great, but them dropping, 2 pallets, and you look in the background at a certain airport, and there's 75 to 80 pallets. Like, how do you know that those are getting to the bad terminology?
Yep.
How do you know that those aren't going to the popular people, and not the
ones
not
that
the
need
7 or 8 families on the side of the mountain that nobody cares about. You know what I mean? Like how
Yeah, it's a challenge.
because it's a convenience factor. I don't care. I watched it yesterday with my own eyes. There's a convenience factor.
Yeah.
I'm going up
What are your
there.
thoughts on Red Cross? I'm sorry.
Who's that?
I'm sorry to put you on that spot.
No, that's okay. I don't think they do what most people think that they do
Okay. I thought you would go there.
most of the time. The Red Cross was a little bit helpful to me when I was medevaced out of Africa. They communicated with my spouse, but and they helped provide updates and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to trash them, but in an emergency situation, I've never found them to be like really, really helpful.
But they come to ask for money real quickly, though.
They definitely come to ask for money. Yeah.
I donate tons of stuff to them.
Yeah.
You do?
Oh yeah, we got foundation, or not foundation. We do a couple charity events, and the Red Cross is one of them that we do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know they're trying to help, and there's others out there, but I'll tell you what, it just seems to me that the grassroots efforts are doing as good.
That's usually the best way to go. To go. If you can see it get in the hands of the person that needs it, that's usually the best way to go. It's hard to do that, I know, but.
Well, Jason, real quick before we stop, I want to mention several local, if you're here in the Grand Strand area, Jason and those are doing it at Perry's and at MIFC, Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters, his charter business, accepting all donations there. And you can go to MIFC or to Perry's and see the list of things that they're looking for now.
Yep.
I will say this much. I'm pretty much for the last umpteen years, sometime between October 16th and the 26th, my wife and I are in the mountains for 5 to 7 days. And at every night, at some point in time of those weeks, we either get snow when we're up there or we're in the 30s. It's forecasted next week for nights in the 30s already.
It's about to get cold.
Clothes are going to be important. And you brought up a great point when I mentioned clothes, was that a lot of these people have clothes. The problem is they were brought away from their homes to get down there, and they can't get back to where the clothes are. But I know clothes are going to become important next week, and I know we've already started, getting jackets and different things for them. But you can drop off there. SC Needs Help is another great group that we know things are getting in the right hands.
Samaritan's Purse is always a good one.
Samaritan's Purse is great. I watched a special with them. Samaritan's Purse is a really good one. It's a church-based group.
Yeah.
And I'll say this much. You find a church-based group, you're going to find it going in the right hands 99% of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time. I'm not going to say all the time.
Yeah.
But our friends at Dead Dog Saloon and Claw House are also working with Cisco Foods and also are going to be continuing to go back and forth. And they are collecting items there as well. And if you're looking, you'll find somebody to donate to in your local area. If you don't have a group doing it yet, start it. Or go to like Samaritan's Purse or group like that and help out. It's going to be a long time. We've talked about it, months, years. I mean, and I think at some point, in some places, we'll never see the mountains like they were. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, some towns are completely gone. I never spent a lot of time at Chimney Rock. I didn't. I honestly was scared of the height to climb up on top of Chimney Rock. So we never went there but one time and never went back. But we were right around the other side of the mountain at Black Mountain. That's where we spent all our summers.
And that little crazy picture you see at the top of that little cafe, that was one of me and Rachel's anniversary. We went up there and stayed, and we ate at that cafe and went in that little shop beside it where you see that before and after picture that the news keeps showing over and over. So
I mean, it's amazing. Everybody has a story to relate at some point in time in the mountains. We've all been up there. We all go, especially us flatlanders, we love to go up there, see some hills and everything else. But you can make a difference, find the right group, and Jason and those continue to make a difference. I want to give a big shout out to Carter Sheridan and the Sheridan family in Georgetown. That is our good friend Tony Carter. You've heard him on the radio show. That's his nephew. Carter's 20 years old. He is a flight instructor, and he has been flying nonstop every single day up into he just made it to Burnsville, just so you know. He made it to the Burnsville airport. Flying goods, and they're collecting those at Georgetown Airport. So if you can get to Georgetown Airport, they are collecting goods there too as well. But that family has been doing incredible things, and they have 3 planes that are leaving leaving every day. Right now. And these are planes that are being donated. Yes, the fuel's getting paid for, and this is the one thing, the fuel's getting paid for. Donations are going to that fuel. But that makes a big difference. That is how these planes are not cheap to fly. The helicopter's $740 an hour to fly a helicopter with jet fuel. So it's expensive.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, that helicopter guy that we were up there with. I mean, they were looking for fuel in between the rescues, and just being able to coordinate that was.
And then the maintenance that comes on them because. Cletus said he bought that helicopter. He got it the day before the storm.
Really?
And then they called a friend of his, Greg Biffle, called him and said, "Hey, I need you to bring that helicopter up here." His wife and him loaded in it, brand new. They had just flown it from the company where they bought it and flew up there and went to work. And then he flew it back, and he was doing the video back, and he was talking, he had people get air sick. I mean, that would probably be me. Yeah. Stephen had to coax me to get into a helicopter and fly up 200 feet in the air.
Forgot about that.
And then he made them, and then I had to go fly around the field, but with my leg hanging out the helicopter. And
a gun.
And a gun in my hand. That's right. But those helicopters have done an incredible job. If you can find a way to help with those, anything. But I will say this much: it is it is terrible that this country is where it's at, that it is taking another disaster to bring us all together again. But I think it truly has. And I say that I say that sparingly for some, but I do believe overall, I don't think there's any political alignment that is around those that are helping.
No,
I
can tell you from being on the ground, those people don't care what race you are, what your beliefs are, your religion. They don't care what politics you are. Those are human beings helping human beings, and they could care less.
I'm going to tell you, if you want to go see an incredible group, go find Blacks Camp 2, TOO, on Facebook, and go follow that group and watch what they're doing. It's pretty awesome. They're in Asheville. They've been working in Asheville and around Asheville, but found that group in searching for different groups that are doing things together, just like the SC needs help. But, Rick, man, I'm sorry we kept you on so long, buddy. I know you probably hung up.
Nope. But gotta go. And
well, listen,
I will say,
go ahead, chime in. I wanted you to have the last word.
Just on the plug on this, obviously don't do it now because they are still in restoration. But in the future, for everybody, especially the Santee Cooper, the co-ops, the Dukes, the Dominions, thank a lineman, thank a linewoman into the future. Again, they are absolutely running on crazy shifts to try to help get people's lives back online. And they are truly the heroes of restoration. I mean, they're the front of our facing in storms like this, and they are literally working their shifts, eating, sleeping, and getting right back up to make sure that people do have power, so that way rescue efforts can happen. So, obviously don't do it now because they have a job to do, but just in the future, those folks need to be acknowledged for everything that they're giving, because they're away from their families. And it's not just the Santee Cooper linemen and the other utility linemen and linewomen that are doing this. There are contract crews that are coming from out of state. Everybody's away from their family trying to make sure that folks get back and have some sort of semblance of normal life. So just as your listeners think about this into the future, those folks do an awesome job day in, day out, and especially on days like now.
Absolutely, they're important. They are so important, and there's no doubt about it. And I hope that this doesn't. We all heard the stories about Texas. I had friends that were out in Texas that were working, and actually all packed up and came home. They ran into a lot of issues out there with people that were wanting to prioritize their electricity over others, and it got ugly. Let's just hope that doesn't happen here, and that all our linemen and linewomen are safe. And they got a dangerous job, and they're out there, what they're dealing with and what they're doing. As important as it is extremely dangerous. And, we are lucky to have them out there at the front, and they're in our prayers and thoughts in the days, months, weeks, and years ahead as we try to restore from all of this. And Rick, man, thank you so much, brother. And listen, best of luck to Heidi on her trip, and look forward to talking with both of y'all when she has a successful trip out to Colorado, brother.
That works for me, man.
All right, buddy. Thank you, man. Senator, thank you, man. Thank you for joining us. I know you got a lot going on, and election is what are we at, like a month away?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a month away.
4 weeks away. 4
weeks away, y'all. It's going to be a very important election. I hope everybody really pays attention to what's going on when they go to the polls. For real, please, please, please. And don't forget to vote for Senator.
Can I say one thing about, I know everybody wants to go. We've had a long
day. Keep going.
But one thing I do want to say, there's a lot of different stuff on the ballot this year, depending on where you are. I'm just going to talk about Horry and Georgetown County for a minute. If you're in Pennsylvania or Australia, then this has no bearing.
Yeah, you don't have a bearing.
You don't care. But there's a couple of penny sales taxes on the ballot this year, and because Horry County has got it's now transitioned to a transportation tax instead of the capital improvement sales tax. It's still the penny. It's just that it's bonded out over 25 years rather than 9. Because of that, because of the way the law is written, because of a couple of Supreme Court cases, they've had to write it in a very technical way. And when you read it, you're not going to want to read it. It's 2 or 3 pages long. It's ugly looking. And I'm afraid that people are going to confuse this with a tax increase, okay? It's actually a tax decrease for Horry County people, and it will build every single road that Horry County has ever wanted.
Right.
Okay, including paving some of the roads. Is that me? Sorry, that's me. Including paving some of the roads that have needed to be paved for a long time. And so I would just encourage anybody not to get discouraged by the referendum. It's the same old penny that Horry County's always had, and that continues to build roads. And there's a couple really important roads in this new penny plan. So
very important.
I don't normally get on here and endorse any referendum type stuff. It's just important to get the Horry County penny passed. Georgetown's got a couple on their ballot. I'm sort of mixed on those, honestly.
Are you?
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that off there then.
We will.
I don't want to bring them up, but I know there are some important ones, and obviously my friend Beth Goodall reached out to me about several of them. But
vote for the Horry County penny, please.
There you go. Vote for the Horry County penny. And listen, just pay attention to what goes on in the coming days, weeks, and months when you vote. And don't let your hate for anybody, individual, dictate who you vote for. Look at what they're going to do for the constituents, for where you live, and for this country. And I'll leave it at that because I am definitely no political expert. I just know what I know the people that I align with and the people that I fall for and vote for, and I know what this country needs right now, and I hope that we are successful, because if not, we're in trouble. Anyway, go fishing, go hunting, fins, fur, and feathers, whatever it is, go chase it down. It's fall. On one positive note, y'all.
Best time of year.
It is the best time of the year. I mean, without a doubt. I don't care what you're doing, whether it's going shrimping. By the way, have you been yet?
I have not yet.
Okay, we hadn't either. We're
trying to go.
We're trying to go, but other things are more important.
More
Thank you. That's Shep and I were texting last night about it. He just got his shrimp tags in, and he's like, "I'm not in a hurry. Like, let's take care of other stuff first." But man, the fishing's great here, and of course, hunting everywhere is in. And man, it's been a great time. It was good topics. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Y'all go find Jason Burton, Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters, all social media. Go check out that video. I'll share it as well. But anyway, so if you can make a difference, please make a difference for our friends up there in Western North Carolina. But especially, keep them and everyone involved in your prayers. This has been Trilogy Outdoors Podcast, talking fins, fur, and feathers.
Hey, y'all, Captain E here with Southern Anglers Radio Show, and I'll tell you what, I am super excited to be down in the Pond Road Storage in Merle's Inlet. I'm located within moments of either going to the river or going to put in the inlet. I'm keeping that Key West 250 Bay Reef indoors, and it is staying in great shape. I only have to wash the boat once now, and that's when I put it up and not before I take it to go fishing. But you can get incredible options here. 20-foot wide, 50-foot deep with 14-foot roll-up doors, a most state-of-the-art security system to keep you that peace of mind on all your products that you may keep in these storage buildings. You've got climate-controlled or non-climate-controlled outdoor storage for trailers, RVs, and such. You can't go wrong. 843-855-7375. Give Chris Collins a good call down there. We can't wait. We love broadcasting down here inside the storage building. And you need to come down here and check it out, too. Come down. Pond Road Storage, right here in Merle's Inlet.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also, don't forget our other brands, Southern Anglers Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.